My name is Thais Gibson, and I'm the creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and in this video, I'm going to talk to you a little bit more deeply about reconditioning as a fearful avoidant attachment style. So this is something that there was a part 1 video for, where we really talked about like healing fearful avoidant or disorganized attachment style and what this needs in terms of this process. So part of healing is not just talking about something, right? We can't just discuss something and say, oh, I talked about it, so now it's better. Healing means reconditioning the way that the event impacted us. So if you went through some, big experiences of feeling like you weren't good enough because of maybe having really critical parents or caregivers or whatever it might be, you can't just talk about the fact that that happened and become better. You have to do reconditioning on the belief that I'm not good enough, to see that how I can be good enough. I am worthy of feeling good enough, feeling confident, right? We have to do reconditioning. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, you can't heal fearful avoidant attachment style or disorganized attachment style. Of course you can, because you're not born with it. It gets conditioned into you over time. And once you properly and effectively understand the mechanics of the subconscious mind, then you'll realize that there's a lot more power over our lives we have than you might think. And in fact, a lot of different things can be reconditioned. So what I've created at the Personal Development School is something called integrated attachment theory. It's part of what we're doing the coaches training for right now. And it teaches everything about reconditioning your painful belief patterns, reconditioning your painful emotional patterns, and understanding that we can actually regulate our emotional state significantly more than you would imagine. Reconditioning our relationship to our needs, our relationship to our feelings as a whole, but also our coping mechanisms we have and our boundaries. So I'm not going to go into all those different key principles right now. If you want to do a training, we're going to launch another one in October where you can actually get certified in this stuff. And you can click the link in the description box below if you're interested. But what I'm going to take you through in this video are 5 key steps to deeply learning reconditioning. And there's one tool I'm going to share with you. Now, there are many different tools once you understand how the subconscious mind works. We're just talking about beliefs, okay? These are some big beliefs that are common for the fearful avoidant attachment style individual. You can watch the beliefs, thoughts, emotions, actions, right? BTEA that we talked about in video 1 of this mini series. And you can see how these things happen, right? If I believe I'm not good enough, my belief, then I start thinking thoughts about how I'm not good enough, right? And I start thinking, oh, I'm not interesting enough or smart enough or whatever it might be. And then how do you feel when you're thinking those thoughts? You feel insecure, you feel anxious, you feel afraid, you feel sad. How do you act? Maybe you hide. Maybe you don't take opportunities. Maybe you don't go to the job interview after all, or don't apply. Maybe you don't start the business you've always wanted to start, or you reach out to that person you've wanted to date because you don't think you're good enough. So you can see how BTEA creates this output of effects and events. Now, how we acquire programs to begin with, because you're not born with your attachment style, right? It gets conditioned into you originally between the ages of 0 to 2. However, attachment style can change over time because we have neuroplasticity. But whatever you're fired and wired, whatever you're repeatedly exposed to through repetition and emotion, fires and wires neural pathways. So if you keep hearing that you're not good enough all the time from a critical parent, this should have been better. Why did you get a B? You should have gotten an A. Why aren't you on time? Why aren't you doing this? If there's this constant dialogue of everything you're doing wrong and what's not good enough or what's not right, you're going to come to form that belief because it's literally getting conditioned into your subconscious mind. You're building and firing and wiring these neural pathways that are sort of building the self-concept or identity. Now, the good news is that you can recondition this stuff. Once you have the insight and awareness to understand what's going on for you, you can recondition it. And that's part of what healing and actually transforming your attachment style is all about. Now, there's different facets to it, but one of the biggest facets is what we've come to believe about ourselves, about love, about relationships. And you can see here in this chart, the highlighted beliefs here are some of the key major belief patterns that are painful for the fearful avoidant. Now, I know sometimes you can look at this chart and be like, oh my gosh, I have so many of those, right? Especially as a disorganized or fearful avoidant attachment style. I've been there myself, okay? I've had most of these beliefs that were big core beliefs for me. But myself and many, many of our students inside the Personal Development School have had the experience of actually rewiring all of these core beliefs so that they're no longer a part of our self-concept or identity. It doesn't mean you won't feel things like this as a human. If somebody gives you really critical feedback, you might be like, oh, what I did wasn't good enough, or ouch, that kind of made me feel not good enough. But it won't just be this assumption about yourself and circumstances that the subconscious mind goes to immediately, right? Somebody pulls away and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's because I'm not good enough, right? Instead, it'll be like if somebody directly tells you this wasn't good enough, you can consider and maybe go, you know what, I have room for improvement. So, the core wounds are that your mind's constantly jumping to these assumptions when you have them, these painful beliefs, subjectively interpreting its objective reality through the lens of these beliefs, which is really the lens of your own subconscious mind. So how do we recondition these beliefs? Well, we fire and wire new ones using repetition plus emotion. And it's just one simple tool. I mean, we have a whole course in PDS called 21 tools to reprogram your subconscious mind. And there's 21 tools. And you can sort of pick, your favorites. And some are better for certain circumstances or situations than others. But I'm taking you through in this one tool, a tool called belief reprogramming. Okay. And very simple, very self-explanatory. But the idea here is that we know that we got wired through repetition and emotion. So let's say we'll go to this really simple idea, right? That somebody was really critical to you growing up. So you come to believe I'm not good enough. So we have to rewire. Now, you've probably heard of affirmations, and I'm not a big fan of affirmations because you can't just tell yourself when you believe this for years and years, right? Decades. You can't just say, oh, I'm good enough, I'm good enough, I'm good enough if you've had all this programming that's told you otherwise. And the reason, that's not very reasonable is because the conscious mind speaks through language. The conscious mind speaks through I am good enough, like the actual words, right? Or I am not good enough, where affirmations are coming into place. The subconscious mind speaks through emotion and imagery. So when we want to rewire something, we have to use our conscious mind to actually communicate to our subconscious mind, because the problem is not existing at a conscious level. If the problem existed at a conscious level, you'd be able to walk into a networking event when you're feeling super insecure and not good enough because you've got some big core belief for yourself there. And you'd be able to actually walk into that event and say, mind, feel good enough, feel confident. And you would just be able to do it because your conscious mind had the thought. But we know that's not the case. We know that there's times you've wanted to feel better, get out of a funk, not feel anxious, not feel insecure, and you can't just outwill yourself. And this is because the conscious mind can't outwill or overpower the subconscious mind. So what do we do instead? Well, we have to use our conscious mind to speak to our subconscious mind, which speaks through emotion and imagery. Now, what is the container of emotion and imagery? Well, it's memory. So if I sit here and I were to close my eyes and I were to think of my favorite childhood memory, okay, what you would see with myself, just like anybody else you ask to do this process, if I'm really like getting into it and reflecting about it, I'll start smiling. My body language will open. I'll start feeling more positive and optimistic and open. And just like if somebody starts thinking of a negative memory or projects a fear into the future as well, our muscles will clench. We might clench our jaw. We might, we feel these actual neurochemical responses and emotional responses flooding throughout our body. It actually affects our physiology, right? And so what's happening is if you look at the memory is an image or set of images that still contain the emotion from the time that the memory was encoded. So if I think of the favorite childhood memory, I might have, I smile and I think of the happy moment of it, or the moment I felt the excitement or pride or whatever the positive emotions are attached to the memory. So when you want to recondition, the problem that you're trying to recondition is located in the subconscious mind, right? It's this story you have about yourself. You can't just tell yourself in language, traditional language, I am good enough, because it doesn't reach the subconscious mind doesn't really hear that. You have to tell your subconscious mind through emotion and imagery. So you have to find proof that you're good enough that's contained within memories. So now that you understand that part, I'm going to show you a 5-step process. Here's a belief reprogramming tool. Okay. Step 1, identify the core beliefs that affect you the most. I mean, if you're working on fearful avoidant attachment style, it would probably be I'm betrayed, I'm afraid of being abandoned or alone or not good enough. And then we have to oppose this. Okay. Then we have to find proof when we're opposing this. Why? Because proof is really memory. Proof is imagery and emotion. If I say I'm good enough because I got this award, or I finished this education or this program, what happens is, as you say it, if you pay really close attention to your mind in slow motion, you say, oh, because I graduated from this place. And what image comes to mind, right? Maybe walking across the stage, receiving your diploma, the feeling of, pride from walking across the stage as and maybe it's from, seeing that you were capable. I wrote a book, or I completed a project, or I, did this thing that my boss asked me to do. And when you think of it, you actually think of it in images and in emotion. So this is the hack. This is how we actually start reprogramming, or at least one of the easy ways. And it's a very great starter kit tool. So I am not good enough. What's the opposite? I am good enough. What's proof? You can look across all 7 areas of life. So you can look across career, financial, mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, relationships. And what you're doing is, remember, how did you get your programs to begin with? Repetition plus emotion, right? So if you repeat using repetition plus emotion in memory, AKA emotion and imagery, right? So all you're doing is you're getting the repetition, emotion, imagery, compiling them together. And by doing this, we actually start firing and wiring new neural pathways, which create new self-concepts. And when we stop feeding into these old stories on autopilot, these old neural pathways atrophy over time, just like muscles. So if you have like a few quick steps here, step 1 is pick the core belief that's hurting you. Step 2 is find the opposite of it, and then find proof. You want 5 pieces of proof at least to start off with. I recommend 10, but if you can do 5 on a daily basis, so you're brushing your teeth in the morning, you're trying to work through I'm not good enough, you think of 5 reasons you're good enough. And you feel about them. You think of memories, right? Specific things you did that were good enough. Now you have to focus a little bit, right? You can do it while you're driving. You can do it in any place where you've got like quiet and you can focus. But as you do this over the course of 21 days, I mean, this is why you hear it takes 21 days to create a habit. So it's repetition plus emotion, firing and wiring across time. And you start to actually rewire or recondition these old painful programs. You can apply them to any belief. Now, when we talk about integrated attachment theory, which is what PDS is based off of, we go into reconditioning your relationship to your needs, to your boundaries. I mean, there's so much reconditioning you can do, and every single course we have at PDS is literally designed to address things at a subconscious level, which is where the reconditioning happens, which is where real change takes place. And it's not just acknowledging or talking about something, it's actually being able to understand something, acknowledge it, and then do the reconditioning. That's the next step to creating that transformation. So I hope this makes sense to you. I mean, this is just very high level. In PDS, as I say always, or as much as I can on this channel, like, it's so much more in depth than I can put together in a 10-minute YouTube video, because we have the slides, we have, the hour and a half of content, you've got the workbook, you've got all the steps written out in front of you. We've got 4 live calls I do every single week with the students in our programs to be able to, go into this stuff in more detail and answer follow-up questions. So you can check it out for free for 7 days at any time using the link below. And you can also sign up if you want to learn more and actually have this as a part of your practice, or, be trained to become an integrated attachment theory coach. What we really do is couple attachment theory with principles of reconditioning at the subconscious level as it relates to our needs, our boundaries, our painful belief patterns we have, our relationship to our emotions, and our coping mechanisms. And we actually recondition these core pain points and teach the tools to do so. And in that training that we'll be launching in October, we also have a very in-depth part about how to build a business, how to, create funnels, how to market yourself for your business, and, that really supportive set of tools and resources. So I hope this makes sense. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being here. Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video.